You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.
Hello, hello, hello out there in podcast land. Welcome to Johnny Has the Keys, where we talk about horror movies and sci-fi films and those key elements that lift them above the average genre fare. My name is Tim, and we would like to welcome you if this is your first time listening. If not, well, welcome back. Tell a friend, bring more to our party. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure and click that subscribe button. I am here with my co-host, David Horton. Hello, David. How are you doing?
I am well. Good. You did the intro so well this time, Tim, and welcome to all of our new and old. Look at you.
I'm weird, man. I thought it was all over the place, if you want to know the truth.
Well, you know, maybe that works, you know. So we'll see how many subscriptions we get just from that. Yeah.
Okay. There you go. So what, I guess, has been going on in your genre week this week?
Genre week has been crazy because I've just been doing theater stuff. I've been looking at 2 or 3 new shows. So I've been reading some stuff. We did a live event last week called Shakespeare Goes Wrong, which was basically Shakespeare with an alcoholic twist. So it was really good. But in doing that, I got to revisit, I think, yours and my favorite Shakespeare play, which is, of course, the Scottish play, Macbeth. I got to reread through it again to see if a couple of versions would work for what we were doing. And just reminded me of, you know, of us doing that show, you know, decades and decades ago.
I still remember lines from it.
I do too.
It's just like the rhythm's still in my head 30 years later or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, Tim and I had the privilege of doing a community theater show, and I got to play the lead, Macbeth, and Tim was my best friend Banquo, which was kind of unique.
Yeah, because I was a ghost too.
It got to be a ghost and bloody, and we had a lot of fun doing that show. But it was great, revisiting it and just reminding myself of how great that particular play is of all of his. I do like Shakespeare. I am a fan, of course, but that particular play just always gets me because it has fear. It has genuine scares in it.
It's got a lot, and it's short. It's not as long as a lot of his plays. It's funny that you brought it up because I have seriously been considering just pulling down my book and starting to read a few plays of his, just because I haven't really visited them that much since college.
Yeah. Well, for this one, I got to reread, you know, Macbeth, Hamlet, Midsummer Nights, of course, Two Gentlemen of Verona. I haven't read it in like decades, so that was fun. But just trying to find which one would work best with a lot of improv kind of twist to it. Ended up settling on Hamlet, and that's the one that we actually did, which was great to make fun of the Dane and Polonius and, you know, neither a borrower nor a lender be, you know, so it was fun. What have you been doing? What have you been up to?
Well, back to Shakespeare a minute. I've been writing a romance novel. I know this is not going to interest any of the people out there, but it's got there's a theme going on in it of mismatched people. There's like bad blind dates. There's bad pairings when you know the two that should be together. And I kept thinking there's got to be a Shakespeare play out there, and I couldn't find it. What they have out there in Shakespeare land that I could find was Mistaken Identity, which is a little different. So if you come across one of those, let me know.
Yeah, lots of star-crossed lovers, lots of mistaken identity of, you know, even in Twelfth Night and all of that. So yeah, I can't think of two destined that don't end up together or do eventually end up together, but I'll do
end
some
up
research.
with the wrong partner temporarily or whatever. You know what I mean? That's kind of or bad dates.
Look into that. Bad Tinder.
Bad
whatever.
dates.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're going to love where I went this week. And I will just announce it with a picture.
Oh,
These are what I watched this
yes.
week.
I like both of those.
Well, and I started to say both sci-fi land, but actually only one of them sci-fi land. Spectre, you recommended on the last podcast and several podcasts ago, which is sort of another one of those devil movies. But this was clearly a pilot that Gene Roddenberry was doing. Very similar to, the X-Files or Kolchak, where there would have been this mystic type detective out there trying to solve paranormal crimes, for lack of a better word. I don't know that it wasn't really crimes, but he was out to resolve things for the better good or for his own benefit. It was okay. I mean, I didn't mind it. It's very interesting to watch because it's dated and the effects are not great. You'll see that demon in the picture behind me looks kind of like a Gorn.
Sort of, yeah. He's very lizardy. Yes.
Yeah.
That's Asmodeus.
But I don't know if you knew it or not. Roger Culp, I don't know if I corrected it in our notes from last week's episode. You had said Clu Gulager or Gallagher.
Oh yeah, I did.
Gulager.
I did.
It's
right.
actually Robert Culp, who does look a lot like Clu Gulager.
He's the demon. He's the demon with the glass hand. Come on now.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I watched that not too long ago. That's Harlan Ellison.
Yes.
Outer Limits. Yeah. I just remembered something else I want to say. The thing that fascinated me most about this movie, and you're going to think, oh God, Tim's going off on a tangent, but it has Gig Young in it. Gig Young is like his sidekick.
Yes.
And he had a bad alcohol problem and was drunk a lot on set. And he met his fifth wife on this production, murdered her the next year, and killed himself.
No, he did not.
Yes.
Really? See, the movie's cursed because it used actual demon incantations in it.
So that movie, that series did not get picked up.
It was. I thought it. As soon as it became kind of bootlegged, because it was very, very hard to find anywhere for a while. And as soon as it became bootlegged, I got a DVD of it and watched it again. And yeah, I saw the datedness, but I really thought for Roddenberry, it was a great pilot. It was not science fiction because he was so used to doing Quester tapes and Planet Earth and everything he could to try to get sci-fi back on television. But this whole approach of a semi Watson and Holmes, kind of characterization, they kind of did it like it was, Sherlock and Watson kind of thing.
Yeah.
And they would be solving these, mystical mysteries kind of
exactly.
thing.
Exactly. The kind of series you and I would gravitate to.
Yeah. But I thought, did you not think that the Bachnal kind of orgy-esque thing was a lot better than they did on Devil Ray?
You're gonna laugh when I tell you this. It was even more better because as I was watching it, I was like, I just saw tits. What is going on? There's nudity in this. And so I went and read that they put those in for the overseas version. Yeah. So the version we're watching did not air in America. But yeah, I was like, I thought this was a TV movie and I'm seeing nudity. What is going on here? Yeah. I don't know if you also noticed that Mr. John Hurt is also in this movie 2 years prior to being the first victim of a chest bursting alien in Alien.
Yes.
But yeah, lots going on. And the reason I bring the whole Gig Young thing up is because when I was in Greece with Dee and Rodney, we didn't get a lot of great TV over there. It was the 90s too. And we watched, They Shoot Horses, don't they? I had never seen it. And Gig Young is in that. And Dee had said, oh yeah, he was crazy. He killed his wife and killed himself. And then I'm watching this and find out that he met her on this set. And it happened the very next year. So I just thought that was fascinating.
Well, I was not aware of that tragic story, but that's interesting now. I'll have to do some research on it.
And he was, I guess he had problems, but he was a star or an actor for a long time.
Yeah.
And then I graduated a few days later to 1973's Westworld, the one that started it all. Michael Crichton's first directed movie. He directed several after. This movie scared the shit out of me as a kid. Yul Brynner is still kind of terrifying in it. He really is. And believe it or not, there is a common bond between these two films. Do you know what it is?
Between Spectre and Westworld?
Yeah, big time.
It's not the leads. It's not Yule. It's not Crichton. No, I don't know.
It's Majel Barrett. She's in both.
Oh, yeah.
She has a small part in Spectre as Robert Culp's assistant, and she is the brothel owner in Westworld.
Brothel owner, yeah.
She is. So Mrs. Roddenberry was in both these films. I read all kinds of interesting stuff where they were thinking about going with stronger leads, but it had a lower budget, and Michael Crichton was the first-time director, so that's how James Brolin and Richard Benjamin ended up in it. But I don't mind the cast at all. I think they're great.
No, I think they worked really well. I liked it. I bought the novelization of the movie and read it. It definitely inspired, of course, the Nolans, and Nolan and Joy to do the series, of course. And if you watch it, there's all sorts of homages to this movie.
I was amazed at how much this movie had that is in the series, because I've only seen the first season, but they do a lot of it. I was like, wow, there's striking similarities to it.
Oh yeah, the one guy who's been there a bunch of times, taking the newbie into it from the beginning. They both go to Westworld. They both have their, one of them loves just killing and screwing and everything, and the other one's kind of the nice guy.
Until he gets the fever, and
there's a great there's a great making of documentaries about this movie that are great. But because I'm trying to remember if it was Dick Smith, because I'm thinking the makeup was done by somebody that you wouldn't expect. And I know that part of what they did was, like for the Yul Brynner acid effect, they actually took Alka-Seltzer and crushed it up and added it to the powdered makeup.
And put it on his face so it looked like it was bubbling.
So it looked like it would bubble. They didn't have enough money, so all of the scenes in the labs underneath Westworld are the same hallway, just shot from different angles in different ways.
Makes sense.
They pulled extensively from the back lot at Paramount to take the Roman costumes and the togas, and then the medieval costumes and the dungeon. And we've got like 3 days to shoot this. Let's go.
Oh, and they've got the backlot stuff already, so they had a lot of the sets. It was not very expensive, I wouldn't think. I don't recognize these makeup people. It was Frank Griffin, Irving Pringle, and Dion Taylor.
Maybe it was a Dick Smith article where I was reading where he was talking about how innovative he thought that was. I think that's it.
It could have been.
And the stuff they did, the way they did the cuts to go from the dummies, which were very good, a good realistic dummy of a couple of the girls and of Yul Brynner, so that they could take the faces off, and then, they used that whole concept, of course, in $6 Million Man for like 3 years or whatever, for all their fembots.
It spawned a lot. I was reading where some of the sets were reused on like MacGyver and stuff too. But the thing that really kind of fascinated me about it that I didn't think about was the whole Crichton aspect. I never really put together that this is the exact same theme as Jurassic Park. It's like he's been doing the same story for 30 or 20 years. He did this in 73 in Jurassic Park in the 90s.
Theme park goes wrong.
Theme park goes crazy. Yeah. This one, it's robots. And the next one, it's dinosaurs. I was like, wow, he really was obsessed with that theme of Disney World.
To me, he's kind of like the John Booker of the 70s, where he liked to take technology and say, how could it be twisted or subverted, or how can it come back to get us, kind of thing. So like a lot of, Runaway, Coma, a lot
I
of
want to
his,
watch Coma next. It's been a minute since I
yeah,
seen
a
that.
lot of his stuff is technology can go bad really quickly unless you're careful, sort of thing. So I think that was, yeah, to your point, that was kind of his, his shtick that he did.
Well, yeah, I mean, he did a lot of science fiction tropes. It just seems like his bigger successes were these about theme parks. Does that make
Oh
sense?
yeah. And, and killing everybody in the control room. We have to do that in both books, in
Oh,
both
I know.
novels.
That's kind of cheesy in
And,
Westworld. I was like, are they really suffocating? That doesn't make sense.
oh yeah. Yeah. You would.
Well, they
Because,
had to have nobody be able to, fix things. So they just
right.
kill them all.
And then again, like I said, the series, which I do love, Nolan enjoy. I mean, it has the same thing, except they just kill everybody in the control room. They just literally kill everybody.
Yeah, the robots do it though, don't they?
Yeah.
Or something. Yeah,
Yep.
that makes more sense than them getting sealed in and not being able to open the door.
Right. Well, because the power glitch, the technology, you can't control it. Yeah, sort of thing. But good science fiction. Look at you watching some science fiction.
I know. I knew you'd be proud of me.
Yeah,
So.
very good. Very good.
Well, speaking of science fiction, my God, have we got a big one today?
Boy, do we. We have one of the best ever, 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 ever.
I would be prone to agree with you.
Yes. For those of you who tuned in without knowing, what are you listening to? So we're pretty sure you know the title of what we're going to talk about. But today we are going to delve into 1982's lovely, incredible Star Trek, The Wrath of Khan, considered by, I think, multiple millions of people as the best of the Star Trek movies, of which there have been, I think, now 12. I think 13 if you include all of the J.J. Abrams things.
That's a lot. I mean, I only think about the original usually, but yeah, there's 6 in the original, so that's half of them.
This is probably the most, no, I think it is the most prolific franchise in history. It is being closely, approached by Star Wars initially, then Harry Potter, and then the MCU. But none of them, I think, the MCU is probably the only one that will end up being able to compete with Star Trek because of multiple series on television, multiple movies in their iterations, and a fandom that is over almost 60 years old. That's crazy.
I know.
Awesome.
I mean, but Star Wars is trying. I mean, the Mandalorian's nothing to, toss aside.
Of course. No, not at all. But this franchise created by, and for those of you who are interested in this franchise at all, our sister podcast that we do for our Patreon members called the Dilithium Chamber is specifically about Star Trek, the original series, the first 3 years of Star Trek and those growing pains that it went through of developing these characters and these stories and this style, and what led to, 7 different series, like I said, 13 different movies, dozens and dozens and dozens of novels, huge spoofs everywhere, all kinds
models, toys,
all kinds, a franchise to be
manuals,
reckoned with. Yeah.
comics.
And this falls into the category of the, like I said, most people call it the best of the movies, definitely the best with the original cast. Although there are some people that argue that 4 is just as good, and I disagree. But
I like all the even number ones, but this one's the best to me.
But that's kind of but that's very true. If you're a Star Trek fan, especially original series fan, and look at the movies, you end up going, oh yeah, the even ones work, odd ones, not so much.
Not so great.
Stuff wrong with them. This one basically tells the story of an aging Admiral Kirk who has given up his command, has taken a desk side job at Starfleet, where basically working with new cadets and at Starfleet. who is called back into service when a smaller research vessel called the USS Reliant stumbles upon an ancient adversary of Kirk's from years ago, Khan Noonien Singh, who Kirk had left exiled essentially with all of his cryogenically frozen and now regenerated, eugenically bred supermen and women.
Far fewer than he left there, I noticed.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, there were 72, I think, in the series, and less than 20, I think, are in the cast, are in the crew by the time the Reliant finds them. But they both are kind of tied together with the Reliant is looking for a suitable planet to do a final test of what's called the Genesis Project, which is essentially a life-giving algorithm of molecular manipulation. And Khan finds out about it, comes into the fold, threatens Kirk. Kirk has to take command of his beloved Enterprise and go to the rescue and defeat Khan and hopefully stop the Genesis device. What are your thoughts on this movie, Dr. Smith?
Oh my goodness. Don't call me Dr. Smith. Will Robinson.
Oh God, that was good. Great.
You sniveling robot. No. I have a lot of feelings about this movie, and they usually end up pouring out of my eyes when I get about halfway through it, sometimes in the beginning. You and I've been thinking about this for a few days now. You and I talk about horror and science fiction movies, and obviously I hold tons of horror movies up really high. You hold tons of science fiction movies up high. There are some that we intersect on, and it's almost just symbiotic. The last one I can think of was Dawn of the Dead. You were just raving about it. I could also point out The Exorcist, but with me, it would be like Planet of the Apes and this. This would be one of those for me. In 1982, a shit ton of huge movies came out. This is the only one I was going back to see again. I didn't fall into the ET tribe. I didn't even see it till it came out on videotape, but I didn't fall into the Poltergeist or the Gremlins or all that stuff either. This was the movie that did it for me that summer. And I will always remember that.
Oh yeah, it was a huge year for movies, and but this one has lasted to me, and always will. Not just because I love the subject matter, but because this is the way to do a Star Trek movie and the way to do a science fiction movie. It's just the right blend of character development, humor, science fiction, drama. Great pacing, great music,
a very
great
universal motif as
Yes.
well, with the whole aging thing.
Oh yeah,
It's
about what makes
huge
you
in
feel
this.
young. You're only as young as you feel, that sort of thing underneath it. But also old adversaries and vengeance, and how much are you willing
Yes.
to risk for your vengeance, and is it worth it, sort of thing. And
You like that trope? Here, well, how about this one? Let's just put this one in
yeah.
there. Let's just put this one in there. It's got everything.
I mean, I've got in my notes, one of the things I wanted to point out was just the fact that this does, with JJ's reboot and the new series that are coming out on Paramount Plus and everything else, they keep trying to get back to quote, to me, what is Star Trek? And they keep missing it because of key elements that this movie has. And I don't know why nobody's going, why don't we replicate that? Why don't we try to replicate that rather than go new, altery, whatever? By that, I mean,
they mistake it. I think they think, oh, less science, more action. Well, it's not just the action. There's motivation for the action that they miss. I like elements of the J.J. Abrams things, reboots, but there is a lot of action in them, and it's like to me he's saying, okay, this is what Star Trek is. It's not, I don't know, you know me, and I know you. It's the writing. The writing's just not there.
Well, because the focus, to me, that's what I was trying to get to. I think the focus is wrong. Star Trek was never, I mean, it was wagon train to the stars and it had action, but all that action had to be motivated by character studies and stories and thematics that work. I've got in my notes the bridge of the Enterprise in this, which has been refitted from motion picture. The bridge in this is the way to do an update of a 1960s bridge without going over the top, keeping the same kind of thing, keeping the colored buttons, keeping the mood, keeping the bi-level set effect. You know, JJ went with this chrome glass, pretty lens flared thing.
Yeah, it's been a minute since I saw
Discovery is the same way. Discovery's ship, the ships in Discovery have all these shiny floors and shiny walls and everything. You know, it's like, if you're trying to do this era of this universe that Roddenberry created, then you can do it without going over the top. And you do it by what this movie does best, which is great music, great themes, big themes, almost Shakespearean themes, which is what we've always talked about. Character development and character interplay, from the little humor of, what about my performance? You know, Dr. McCoy, you know, the little humor that doesn't seem cliche or bad or corny. It works.
You lied. I exaggerated.
Yeah. You know, with action and special effects that support the story, that aren't the focus of the story. It's not an action piece. It has something to do with it. You know, so much of the J.J. Abrams is, okay, we're going to watch Kirk ride a motorcycle around the village forever.
Right. Or chase somebody on top of a moving, flying vehicle, you know, that kind of stuff. I'm like, what?
Yeah. Or we're going to have literally a car chase in the beginning of the first one. It's like, why?
I'm thinking of that Into Darkness one. That's the one that always makes me want to scream.
I wrote a 7-page review of that movie when it came out because I hated it so much. It was just so bad.
It was terrible.
It was.
Anyway.
It was.
And I have no problem with an alternate universe where Spock does have an affair with her or what. That's fine with me. But stick to the basics, you know, keep it the same flavor. Does it make sense?
Yeah. I mean, I don't mind, you know, I do, as people who have listened to the podcast before know that I struggle with reboots, because I don't think just because you can reimagine something, you should reimagine something. And I have some definites that I feel. And other times I've been surprised. I was totally against Battlestar Galactica, mostly because I hated the original. So I'm like, okay, they can't, you know.
They can't make it any worse.
I really like what they did with it. Brandon Braga did a good job with that, you know. Or was it Moore? It was either Moore or Braga. I can't remember. But the way I put it in my notes was why Wrath works and the other Star Trek movies don't. It respects the original. It has a great villain. It has humor balanced with drama. The tech supports the story, not the vice versa. There's great character interaction. There's a great character loss. And it ends hopeful, which is very Trek. Ending hopeful is kind of a Trek staple. Very few of Star Trek original series episodes ended sad. The ones that did made a point. There's a reason they ended sad. You know, like City on the Edge of Forever or whatever.
But see, there's grand themes in this as well as there were in City on the Edge of Forever. City on the Edge of Forever was romance and loss. This is, you know, aging and, you know, what does life mean when you're no longer valid, for lack of better words, or when your past comes back to haunt you.
Yes, what you did.
I mean, there's a lot going on that's that's really deeper in this. So we won't dwell on the reboots. We will just continue with this, or try anyway.
Well, except just to say that Into Darkness does really, really suck because they tried to steal so much from this movie. And it didn't work because they didn't understand what they were doing. You can't just say, oh, and we're just going to reverse the roles of who dies and who doesn't. And that'll make the scene even better and neater. No, it won't. So anyway.
Well, and also they don't let you know who the villain is until like 3/4 of the way through the film. And then you're thinking, okay, who's this going to be? Who's this going to be? Surely not. Surely not. Oh my God. Are you fucking kidding me? You go through those steps as you're watching it. You're like, they're not going to do this, right? And then they do it.
And it really made no difference other than fan pandering because it never went anywhere from that. He didn't use his eugenics in any unique way, which was the whole Khan thing. What made Khan work in the original was he was super incredibly intelligent. And he could figure out how to take over the ship, and he could figure out how to manipulate people, and he had a plan. In this movie, he has, he understands the ship and the manuals and figures out how to pilot, how to command a starship, sort of thing. In Into Darkness, he does nothing. He doesn't use his eugenics, and it becomes this side tangent of Area 30, Group 33 or whatever, and an evil Commodore and all of that crap. And it makes.
I just remembered when they said his name, I was waiting for the music to go dun dun dun.
Yeah,
I mean, it was just that stupid. Yeah.
So yes, reverting back to this, when I sat down and started watching this again, it made me smile from the first 4 seconds. As soon as it went into that sound and the blue came up and said Paramount Presents, I went, oh yeah. And then you heard the dun, 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 dun. And that theme is great. I love this theme a lot more than Next Generation's theme. I don't know why they didn't use this theme for that series rather than Next Generation. And that whole, it has a great little opening teaser. The whole Kobayashi Maru thing is a great little prologue that sets everything up. What about scenes?
And it even gives William Shatner an entrance, like he's on stage.
Boy, does
comes
it
in with the light behind him.
A big light and everything.
It's awesome.
Prayer, Mr. Savick.
And all of them. I love how they had to act like they were getting blown up and stuff. That was great.
Yeah. Although I thought, gosh, Starfleet must be in a really lull period when all these senior officers are training these little bitty cadets.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I don't even know where to begin. There's just so much great about this movie.
I mean, there's so many scenes that are great. But what about you? What would be your pinnacles?
I have my mind changes over the years of seeing it, and the thing that stuck out to me a lot this time was when Kirk is on the asteroid with Carol and his delivery of that speech about getting old. I was floored. I was like, wow, he's doing really good. I don't remember this as well. And then she just looks at him and says, why don't you let me show you something that'll make you feel young? And I was like, this is great writing. This is so good. It's like you've got this long soliloquy and then she just caps it with a couplet and they move on.
Yeah. Very nice. Very nice. And, screw a bunch of people that talk about Shatner being bad. He's really good in this movie. He's very good. He's just over enough in some of the exaggerated scenes. Like, do you want a tranquilizer? No.
Or maybe this one.
Khan, of course, the scream. But like a poor marksman, you keep missing the target.
Oh, God, he's great.
But that scene, the scene with David, and you see all the complexity behind it when David's saying, Savick was right. You never have faced death. And it's just his, and even in the scene with McCoy at the beginning, when, don't mince words, Bones, tell me how you really feel. But that whole sequence of where you can tell he's upset that he's aging, that he has to use glasses, that he thinks his he's over, he's done, kind of thing. And both of his two most trusted friends give him the same advice, which is do what you do best again. You know, McCoy says, get back your command before you become part of the collection. And Spock says, this is your best place, you know. So
they also don't try to give everyone a lot of screen time. They don't try. I mean, like Sulu doesn't have a lot. Uhura doesn't have a lot. The only reason that Chekhov does is because he plays into the plot. You know what I'm saying? They just give it to the three. It's you know, Kirk, Spock, and McCoy that get the best lines.
Well, and it goes back to your comment. You know, it's the great writing, because later on in later movies, they do try to cameo them all and give them a little bit. You know, Uhura gets to do a fan dance, and Scotty gets to have a huge interaction with the computer, and Wales, and they keep trying to give them moments, and it's like, no, you just tell the story and let them do what they
we
do.
know who they are and we like them.
Yeah, we'll remember.
I mean, it's enough to hear Scotty say, "You're in your dreams or whatever. You're not going to get power anytime soon. You don't need to see anything," or have him carrying the body of the dead kid in or whatever. That's fine.
Well, no, that's one of the not fines in this movie, by the way. Because if I have a dying nephew, sure, I'm going to take him right to the bridge. Makes perfect sense to me. I'm not going to take him to sick bay or call in a doctor. So I'm just going to go to the bridge first. Just so, look, Jim, what you did.
Yeah, no. There you go. But you see them. You don't have to hear them all the time.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you don't have to feature them in any way all the time. It is the triumvirate. We are watching Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. You and I have talked about it several times. Part of the genius of what Gene Kuhn and Gene Roddenberry did was create this, id, ego, and super ego out of these characters.
And most of the comedy comes from Spock and McCoy.
Yeah. Like it always has. Most of you green-blooded, inhuman. Why, thank you, Doctor.
Yeah, they've got great lines. So McCoy has a slew of them.
Yes. Yeah.
I was trying to think of other scenes.
Well, I thought of you in
the first scene that always has stuck out, that I remember the most from, and loving the most probably since I've seen this movie for the first time, is the first battle, where they're wounded bad, and he's trying to buy time so that they can get the shields down on the other ship. That's that scene right there is probably the penultimate of scenes for me in this movie.
Yeah, as an action piece, it's phenomenal, and the way they balance it and do it and the music is great underneath it with all that percussion and piano bit. But Spock going, he knew precisely where to hit us, and Kirk going, who knew? They're just a great line.
And the music, I never realized the music starts a few frames before the actual scene. You start hearing that. And I was like, wow, it's coming. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it is. Another reason I like it, and I think it works so well, is because Nicholas Meyer, who directed this, has said from the beginning that he had never watched any Star Trek before this. He had never watched the original series. He didn't watch the motion picture. So he came into it totally cold, wanting to tell a good story based on the script that he was given. And part of his interjection into it was the militarization of Starfleet. So it's a little bit more military-esque. They refer to each other as Mr., regardless of their gender. They are, that whole scene is like, the key to me is it's an homage to like Captain Blood and some of those other great seafaring adventures where the two ships are coming at each other from so far away, and you're going, oh my God, he's turning this way, and they're broadsiding and doing all that. And that's what this is. It's a seafaring battle told with spaceships, sort of thing.
Time is a luxury you do not have.
How do we, Khan, how do I know you'll keep your word? Oh, I've given you no word to keep, Admiral.
The bridge is a mess. Give us the time.
Oh, that's one of my lines. I've got, the bridge is smashed. I gotta have time to pull up.
It's coming. I read that they had to shoot that so many times because he couldn't deliver that line without excitement, and they wanted it to not give it away or whatever. So they just wore Shatner out till he was just like spitting it.
Oh yeah,
Here it comes.
yeah. Here it comes, and just says it with that real kind of
where he looks really tired.
Yeah, yeah. The music, though, I think adds so much to this movie. It's really phenomenal. Good. It's James Horner at his best, in my opinion. And the themes work, his mood pieces. You know, ironic that I mentioned Macbeth going into this, because we actually on stage used the underscore of Khan's story when we did our version of Macbeth.
I forgot about that.
The whole sequence where he's talking about, meet the only indigenous survivor of Seti Alpha 6, and
so you have a weird alien.
Yeah. Yep.
One little one anyway.
that violates your body. Yeah. Ugh. Nobody likes that.
No, it's body horror for sure.
Right. I think,
and it comes out conveniently at times.
Yeah, we got to talk about that too. That's one of those.
There's a few things that I will give them.
But that one, that is one of my scenes. You said the first battle. One of my favorite scenes is the birth of Khan scene, the big scene with Khan and Chekhov and Captain Terrell.
That one's
where
this one here. Yeah.
Yeah, where he tells them the whole story, and just Ricardo Montalban is phenomenal in that scene. The way Captain, please, no. Calm yourself. And then just the way, allow me to introduce you, and he takes his shirt off and all, and the cloak off, and all. It's just, he's phenomenal.
I read somewhere where James Doohan was really pissed that he didn't get nominated for an Oscar. That Ricardo Montalban didn't get nominated for an Oscar.
That the scene in, of course, the scene at the end when he's doing the whole "I spit my,"
it's the Ahab line
at the
from Moby Dick. Yeah,
that's a huge key, though. By the way, that is a huge key that he is Ahab in this. Again, Nicholas Meyer, wanting to go back to old heroic seafaring things, because what he caught on to was Roddenberry, when one of his original pitches to NBC was it's Horatio Hornblower. And Nicholas Meyer was familiar with that story. So that's what he kind of went back to. A lot of the naval stuff, even down to the burial at sea, quote, put you in a torpedo tube and send you out.
Well, yeah, when you mentioned all the military aspects, I was thinking about the funeral. That's the first thing that popped into my head.
Mm-hmm. Captain on the Bridge. I mean, just all the stuff that, they didn't do in the old series. When Kirk walked on, they didn't say Captain on the Bridge.
No.
But they did in this, because that's the way these cadets work. I agree with you. I think another one of my scenes would be the scene with Carol, Marcus, and Kirk talking about David and growing up and what happened. And one that got me when I watched it this time, though, is I was going, I wonder if Tim likes this, was the scene on Regula 1 on the Starbase, which was done very spooky and scary.
Oh, where the bodies are hanging? Yeah.
Yeah. And the way they do it with the whole, the doors open and somebody's there looking, and it's all this really slow pace of them exploring. And then McCoy
it looked very much like one of their television sets to me. I was like, wow, this looks old school almost.
Yeah. Well, except to me, that set didn't really read as much, because I put in my notes, it looks like an Irwin Allen set, because it has all those blinky lights on all the panels, and all the panels.
But you know what?
Square.
During that scene is when I noticed the background noise. I was like, oh my God, it's the old background noises. They sound so good.
And all the old sounds. Yeah. Let's see what else. We can't go too far without recognizing also Jack Sowards and Harv Bennett, who actually wrote this script. Herb Bennett was a huge fan of getting Star Trek back up and running again. He had worked with Roddenberry on, even before motion picture, on trying to get the series back. He has a great biography, I guess, out, or a nonfiction book on Star Trek, which is excellent. But they both contributed a lot to this story, to the story elements. You know, I think it says a lot too that Nick Myers came back to the franchise and directed one of my favorites of this series, which was Undiscovered Country.
Didn't they bring Bennett in because they were trying to rein Roddenberry back because of the fiasco of the first film and the overspending and stuff?
Yep.
That's what I seem to remember talking to you about that, maybe on the other show.
Yes. Herb Bennett came in basically as a key producer, line item, line writer, keep the budget in check and don't go crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know, let's show them that we can do Star Trek on a budget, so they'll do more, was basically the reason for it. Let's make the franchise work, because the first one, one of my first notes is this seems so strange coming after the motion picture. Mm-hmm. Because they're so different. Not that, the first, Robert Weiss's version was just so over the top and bloated and big and huge and trying to make Star Trek for the big screen. And it's kind of like they said, no, Star Trek was made for the little big screen. It was a big little screen, we need more intimate.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I love Robert Weiss, but I don't know. What were they trying to do? It was almost like they said, oh, Star Wars is big. We can make this bigger. I mean, visually, not story-wise.
Yeah. It's kind of like they said, no, we need to go back to what works for Star Trek, not a new Star Trek, old Star Trek.
Yeah, I think Robert Wise was just a mistake. Well, it may not have been his fault. It may have been just the script in general.
And I think there was a lot of Roddenberry influence then of wanting to do bigger, bolder, better,
Trying to outdo Star Wars.
Yeah, let's show off my Enterprise for about 25 minutes.
Well, that's a good segue. I have some trivia here. Do you know what Roddenberry's pitch was for this movie?
No.
He said, it says that he wrote his own sequel, and in his plot, the crew of the Enterprise travel back in time to set right a corrupted timeline after the Klingons used the Guardian of Forever to prevent the assassination of John F. Kennedy. His idea was rejected since Paramount executives distrusted him. They blamed him for several problems in the first film. I mean, that's a very big plot, and it's using elements from the series, and then it's mixing, John F. Kennedy in there. I'm like, this is crazy. And Klingons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but that's kind of very Roddenberry at the time, of let's rewrite history. But
I like the idea of plucking Khan. I mean, all you got is Khan and his baggage, and that's a lot of the story right there. You don't need timelines. You don't need the Guardian of the Universe. You don't need Klingons. So
no, JJ should have learned from that. You don't need an evil Commodore who wants to, use black ops to destroy. It's just
just get Mr. Rourke on stat.
Yeah, right now. I that's an interesting thought. I wonder what would have been, there's so much of the original series that if you wanted to revisit or go back, you possibly could. In the animated series, they go back to the Pleasure Planet.
The Guardian.
The one where he can make your dreams come true. The Shoreleaf Planet.
This side
they
of
go
Paradise,
back to that.
Or Shoreleaf.
Surely they go back to that planet in an episode of the animated series, and the machines have broken down, and they really do start creating monsters and bad things, and that's kind of an interesting, but you could go back to, I don't know, even third season episodes. You could revisit the planet where Plato's stepchildren was, and they all had telekinetic powers. Go back to, if you want to do your time travel stuff without doing time travel, go back to Piece of the Action, where the entire culture had built their entire culture on the mob, the Chicago mobs.
Or Patterns of Force with the Nazis. Yeah.
You don't want to go back to the Nazis, Tim. Come on.
Why not? They did it on that Man in the High Castle.
Oh yeah, but that was a reimagining of something cool. That was cool.
Yeah.
So anyway, we've given a lot of great pluses to it. I mean, the scenes, the characters, the music, the writing, the directing.
Yeah, I mean, every scene. I mean, it's like it goes from one scene to another, and I'm like, oh, I love this scene. Oh, I love this scene. Oh, yeah, there's this one. And then I realized, oh, are you saying the lines with them? Have you seen it that many times?
Me too. I was doing the same thing, and I keep glancing down at my notes, and I've got great in front of all these sentences. Great entrance for Kirk. Oh, that's a great new uniform. Oh, that's a great apartment set. Oh, great Reliant design. I'm like, okay, I just need to stop because I'm just going to sit here and write great the whole time.
I don't have really any casting news. Obviously the cast is the cast from the series. The other ones, though, that are of note are that Kirstie Alley played Saavik in this. I don't know why she got recast. Do you? Was it because of Cheers?
I think it was partially Cheers and partially her. She wanted more money. She wanted more stuff, everything else. So yeah.
I wondered if she pissed somebody off, but then I read that she was a huge fan of the show. So I assumed that she was googly-eyed more than anything, but I don't know. She didn't come back.
Robin Curtis plays her in Star Trek 2. Star Trek 3.
Following ones, yeah. Yep. And then Paul Winfield is a great character actor. I remembered him from The Serpent and the Rainbow, but before that, he was in a movie called Sounder. He played Terrell, the captain that is on the planet with Chekhov when they discover Khan. Bibi Besh played Carol, the past love interest of Kirk that they had a child with named David, and that guy was played by Merritt Buttrick, who I remember distinctly from being on that show with Sarah Jessica Parker, Square Pegs.
Yeah. Now Bibi Besh was Howling, right? Wasn't she the mom in the Howling?
I thought that was Dee Wallace.
Oh, it might have been Dee Wallace. You're right. You might have been. Yep, you're right.
But Merritt Buttrick died when he was like 29 or 30. I don't know what happened, if it was drugs or what have you, but he died really young. But the guy that plays Kirk's son was up and coming. I mean, he was probably going places.
Yep.
And then, of course, Ricardo Montalban would be the biggest addition to the cast, playing Khan himself, the villain, welcomed back from the original show.
I thought it was a smart decision to make his wife died so we didn't see MacGyver's and have to recast her or find someone sort of thing.
Right. She had multiple sclerosis or something. She was in bad shape.
I did like some of the other, Kyle is in this. Lieutenant Kyle is in this and actually has a couple of lines, which is great.
That kid from Witch Mountain's in there. I saw him. I was like, oh my God.
Yes.
I don't know what his name is. I didn't put him in my notes, but
there are a couple
bigger faces.
There are a couple of script associations in this that I think either ended up on the cutting room floor or could have been, one or two lines could have been added to help. One is that is Scotty's nephew, but it's never stated in the script. Or in the film that we see.
I was going to say, I didn't know that when you said it. I thought, did I miss that?
Yeah, that's supposed to be Scotty's nephew making his first voyage and getting killed. And the young lieutenant of Khan is supposed to be his son, but that's never played as well. That's never played up. Joachim.
Yeah. I read a lot of those people of Khan's were played by Chippendales dancers.
But they were also some more, and I noticed it because I went back and watched that scene 2 or 3 times, and in some of those cutaways behind Terrell and Chekhov, some of them are older, And I was going, oh, okay, so it is, because I thought, for years I've thought, why is it that Khan looks the way he does in his age and all these other kids are younger? Did they just not get as much eugenics? They got more than him, kind of thing. But it turns out that
but they did uncryogenically freeze all of them in the show, didn't they? I think they did.
Yes, they did. But it's supposedly not just his original crew, but it's their offspring as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
So that makes perfect sense, but it's not really stated anywhere in the script.
Yeah. For those of you out there that do not know this plot, in the original show, one of the crew members of the Enterprise mutinies, and because she's in love with Khan. And anyway, at the end of the show, instead of sending them to prison or trial or jail, Kirk just decides to maroon them on a livable planet where they can't harm anybody. And the whole motivation for revenge in this movie is that was it a moon that exploded and shifted the orbit of the planet or something?
Yes. SETI Alpha 6 exploded.
And the planet became desolate. So they basically had to survive. And he is pissed and has been thinking about it for 15 years.
Yeah, basically he gave Khan the choice of, almost like they used to give, they gave the Australian fighters, of creating, ruling his own world. Mm-hmm. And he thought that was great for someone of his intellect and his superior strength and everything else.
Right.
But unfortunately, unbeknownst to Kirk and Spock and anybody else, since they never, as Khan even says, you never bothered to check.
Right. He just kind of abandoned him.
Yeah. Yeah. He and his flock have suffered a great deal.
And his wife died, and he lost, well, obviously, hundreds of people, because there was a lot more than what we see now.
Yeah, he lost dozens of people, and they were all, there was this very persuasive bug, sentient alien thing that takes control of them.
If you want to go back to scenes/characters, I would have to say the Enterprise and the Reliant play major characters in this movie.
Major characters, yes.
The whole Mutara Nebula section, love that. I mean, it's the secondary or second battle sequence, I guess you would say, in the film.
And that is like a key to an homage to an old submarine movie, where you're trying to outthink each other, even to the point that Spock says linear thinking, and Kirk goes to Mark Z, which means lower the ship. So instead of being on these same planes fighting each other, he goes below, and Khan doesn't know he's below. And that way he can come up behind him and everything. It was really very, it was underwater warfare.
And he sets it up before they get there, because Savick says our shields will be useless. And that's when Spock or Kirk looks at her and says, yeah, level battlefield. Yeah. So will his.
Goose to the, what does he say? Goose to the something or other?
Yeah, it's some phrase I'm not familiar with, but basically he's saying the odds are even now, because we won't.
Neither will his.
Without shields.
Yep. And played very well. Another, again, some great writing in that whole, you said 2 hours, 2 days, but you really meant 2 hours and all that. And, Kirk eating the apple going, I don't like to lose,
Right.
Yeah. You lied. I exaggerated. Yeah.
Back to the ship. When the Enterprise was getting hit without its shields, I was cringing. I was like,
yes,
no. Yeah. It just pissed me off.
I felt it as bad as, like I've said before, like in The Thing when he cuts his thumb. I mean, and it hurts, and you're going, oh no, right, not right there. And it's showing the engineering deck get just blown up. I was going,
yeah.
But then by the same token, when he shoots back and finally gets the bridge of the Reliant and everything else, you're going,
I love when they have Khan pick up that big piece like it's nothing and just toss it aside.
Yes.
Got to remember, he's really strong.
He's really strong here, by the way. Just letting you know. That's not really
Yeah,
plastic or
still.
styrofoam.
Yeah. This is my real chest, Corinthian leather.
Corinthian leather, yes. There's one great moment in this movie that I've always liked is during your battle scene, the first one, and they've been hurt. I mean, Kirk still doesn't know who is doing it and how they got hit so bad and why it happened. And Uhura says, we're being hailed from the captain of Reliant. He wants to discuss terms of surrender. And the music stops, everything stops, everything. And there's a huge cut to Kirk. And then it's a cut to everybody else on the bridge, like looking at him. And then the way he takes a second, but then goes right to him and goes, put him on. He goes, but sir, and he goes, hurry before we don't have any more time. It's just very Kirk. But the fact that everything in that scene, the shots, the music, the lighting, everything is like, comes to a huge stop of like, Kirk's never been told to surrender before kind of thing.
Nah. And then he sees him.
Oh, yeah. And stands up.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah. You remember. I love that whole exchange too. It was great.
It's awesome. And it still kind of blows my mind that it had really only been 15 years. I mean, when that movie was made from the original show, because it just seems longer. And especially now that movie's 40 years old. But,
oh, yeah. But little stuff they do. I love, Khan's crew wearing just pieces of Star Trek uniform. Like they've killed or hurt crewmen and they're just wearing like a jacket or maybe a belt, or they've taken insignia and sewn it into their own costume. I mean, it's just, you're going, oh man.
Khan has a necklace that looks like the Avengers logo.
Yes, it does. It looks broken.
Yeah, it's like a crescent with an A in it, but I think it's the Star Trek insignia.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that comes from the original Botany Bay, something from the original, crash kind of thing that he's worn. He also wears that glove for most of the film on his
it's
right
weird
hand. Yeah, he does a Michael Jackson there for a lot of the.
Yeah, it's sparkly.
Yeah, got little sparkles. We have avoided saying it because hopefully you've seen this movie, but we don't have to avoid anymore because we.
No, I just don't want to cry again.
But this movie, you've done the Nebula battle. Now you have to do the climax. To me, the climax of the story is the sacrifice, and it got me again this time. I have seen this movie dozens of times, and the way it's staged and the way it's performed is just brilliant.
I was bawling before Scotty even said you need to, or someone's, was it Scotty that said you need to get down here, or McCoy?
He says you need to hurry.
He says something. He thanks Scotty or something, and as soon as he thanks him, I start boo-hooing. I'm like, whoa.
Well, the thing that gets me is and again, it's great if you listen to the music there. It's perfect because he's going, Scotty, you're a miracle worker. Da, 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 thanks so much, whatever. And you hear McCoy say, Jim, I think you need. See, I'm getting choked up now.
I know. And he looks over and that chair is.
He looks over. Yeah. It's the cut. And before he even says it, he goes, I think you better hurry. He's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's bad. It's bad. I mean, I can't think of a movie. I mean, I'm sure there are others. West Side Story gets me teary.
Me too.
There's some other movies that make me cry. But this one is just. Do you want him to cry? Just put this fucking movie on. It's going to happen regardless.
Both of their performances are great. The Leonard Nimoy is priceless. And, just standing up and then adjusting his jacket is just such a great touch. Bumping into the glass is a great touch.
And the two lines with McCoy and Scotty, there's enough radiation in there, whatever. And he's like, I got to go. And he's like, he's dead already, Jim.
Yeah, he said, he'll die. He's dead already. Yeah. And you keep thinking there's going to be some miracle. There's going to be McCoy's going to do something. They're going to do it like the series where, blah, blah, blah. It's not. No, it's not. He's dead. And if Star Trek, the legacy of Star Trek or the original series.
Nimoy didn't want to come back.
If the legacy, though, of Star Trek, the original characters in it had ended there, I would have been fine with it. I would have had no qualms. If that had been the last, this is the last movie.
Well, it kind of did.
Well, yeah, sort of. Yeah. I don't know. Undiscovered Country is still a good movie for them.
It is a good movie. And you also have Christopher Plummer chewing scenery instead of Ricardo Montalban.
Lines I've got, of course, that line, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of, they've used that for decades now. When they first see the Genesis cave, and McCoy's going, "Can you believe this, Jim?" And she goes, "Can I cook or can I cook?" It was a great line.
She's great. I mean, all the incidental casting in this is, I guess incidental, I don't know if that's the right word, but it's really well done in this.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with anybody in it.
He tasks me. He tasks me, and I shall have him.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Even the guy that plays Yochim, he's probably the least of my favorites. And, but he's still decent. And enough
he's still
for
decent.
Ricardo to work off of.
Yeah.
Why are you going after him? Let's leave. We have a ship.
Right. What about keys then? Or awards? Did we do any awards for this? It won nothing,
I
right?
have a few, but this movie did not. Of course, I mean, it's like James Doohan was saying, they're not going to nominate a science fiction actor for an award, for an
Especially
Academy
not
Award
one
anyway.
that came from television. You can't like that. No.
But as far as our reliable Saturn Awards, the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy, and Horror Films, Shatner got Best Actor, and Meyer got Best Director. Supporting actor Walter Koenig, which I find kind of strange, and Best Supporting Actress Kirstie Alley, which I could probably understand, and Best Writing. So it was nominated for those four, but one actor and director nominated for costumes and makeup. And then it was nominated for Best Dramatic Presentation in the Hugo Awards, but that's it. And honestly, this really pisses me off. It is not on the 1001 movies you need to see or you must see before you die. I don't get that at all.
It's not?
No, it's not. But some of the other movies from that era are, and I'm like, really?
Yeah, I'd watch this before Sophie's Choice. So.
I would watch this before E.T.
Well, I probably would too, but I do love E.T. But yes, I would agree with you.
So anyway.
It didn't win an award, but it is noted that the Genesis effect sequence is the first major use of computer-generated imaging in a movie.
I read that. I thought that was interesting.
There's
actually something to do with that in Westworld too. When I was watching Westworld, the original,
that there's something with a computer in it.
Yeah, there's maybe it's the first time they used any computer animation in it in a movie or something. Because it was 1973. Remember we were talking how dated the thing looked in 1982? Imagine what it looks like in 1973.
Yeah, the computers. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's his vision, like when he's looking around and seeing the.
Oh, and they're doing actual opticals on
that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I didn't mean to digress, but I thought it was kind of ironic that I watched it and then watched this, and both of them had that threshold of being like a first of something with computers.
Yeah, this was the first major use of CGI in motion picture history. And the next big use was in Young Sherlock Holmes. They actually created a character with it. And that's equated as the first character created by computer graphics. But
I loved all the computer stuff. And to me, this is something else I was going to say when we were watching or talking about it earlier, is this movie doesn't look dated to me. I think it looks great. Even the computer imagery of like the Genesis Project and all that stuff. I thought it looked fantastic.
yeah, and the aesthetics, even of the Kobayashi Maru, the way they're done with the whole, showing the little course trajectory and all that stuff, it works for me. Still works for me.
I don't
now.
have a problem with it. I mean, it may not be shiny and chrome or whatever like J.J. Abrams, but it looks good to me.
Yeah, I mean,
For a
I've heard
40-year-old
people
movie.
complain because on the elevator they use carpet batting material for the walls, and you can tell that, but it works for me. It looks good. It's a texture. Why wouldn't it be a texture? Sort of thing.
And I read somewhere where there was a no smoking sign on the bridge, and they made them take it down because they said there wouldn't be smoking in the future. But apparently it's still visible in like the very first shot or something. I didn't see it.
Possibly. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like the fact that, the aesthetic he took too with the lighting. So when you're on the Enterprise, everything is kind of darker and moodier and everything. When you're on the Reliant, everything is bright, shiny, sort of bad television lighting. Like when he's talking to Kirk on the view screen, it kind of looks like he's standing in front of a Zoom background,
It's kind of, it's hokey too that all of his guys are standing around him like there's some gang or something.
Yeah. It's like warriors come out and play.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is like. I'm going to put that in my keys. That's great.
But so that didn't work for me. The whole take Scotty to the bridge didn't work for me.
We were talking about the bug conveniently crawling out of Chekhov's ear after
for
the
no
guy
reason.
shoots himself.
I mean, if McCoy had injected him with something and maybe then it had done it.
Yeah. They don't like orange juice. Here.
Here. Yeah. There's also a slip that I don't know if they needed it, but for timing, but it bothers me. But they're essentially talking in the transporter when they're coming up from inside Regula One. You can hear Saavik and Kirk talking to each other as they transport in.
That didn't bother me. Does that bother you?
Yeah, they can't talk in the transportation beam. Right? Science is science, dude. You can't change the laws of physics. You can't.
No, but he could have started the sentence and then finished it when he came through.
You're being replicated, molecules being whatever. You can't.
There's voice modules.
Okay. It's like zombies. Zombies can't talk. They have no lungs. Okay. They're not breathing.
But they still go.
But they can't go. That's the whole point. They couldn't be able to. Anyway.
Well, that's my point. It's the willing suspension of disbelief.
True. We're dealing with spaceships here and phasers. Oh, and the phaser design. No, don't. Those were the yucky old, look like soap dish phasers.
And you can't neglect the biggest one was, the most famous one is the I never forget a face.
Yes, there is that. Although, and it's always bugged me, and I've always said, that's a script error, blah, blah, blah. But, 430 people in the crew, maybe he ran into him in the hallway, or whatever. They could have corrected it with one line of, I was only in engineering at the time, but Captain Kirk did this to you and da da da. And you
don't want to give Walter too many lines.
That's true.
No.
Yeah. Although he went on to be Bester in Babylon 5, and I actually like him in that. He's a good villain.
Think he was really good friends with Harlan Ellison. I think they stayed friends too.
Yeah, I think they did for a long time. Yep. What about keys? There's lots of keys that we've talked about already. We talked about
the biggest one is Moby Dick, which is virtually the quote that you just mentioned. It's like Khan's dying lines. The quote is, "To the last I grapple with thee, from hell's heart I stab at thee, for hate's sake I spit my last breath at thee."
Oh no, you can't run.
God.
Yeah. Uh, I've got in my keys. I've got Night Gallery for the earwig. You know, that's the whole.
I couldn't remember what show that was on, but you're right. That was a creepy episode.
That's a
I
great
dreamed
episode.
about that as a kid for years.
There are 2 episodes of Night Gallery that I've always remembered. They've always haunted me. One was that one where they give the guy the ear. He's wanting to kill another guy who's living in the guest house with him. I can't remember if he wants to sleep with his wife or something like that, what the motivation was. It's old EC comic kind of feel. But anyway, he hires the little native to put the earwig in the guy's ear so he'll die, right? And then he realizes that the native got the rooms mixed up and put it in his ear.
Right.
And so he has to go through weeks of torment as this thing eats from one side of his
pretty much claws his ear off. Yeah,
and the thing basically eats through a lot of his head and then comes out and finally comes out and he's still alive.
I think it comes out the other ear. Didn't it come out on the other side? Yeah.
Yeah. And they say, you know, the doctor says it's a miracle. Everybody's freaking out. He's so happy that he's still alive and da-da-da. And then they go, but they lay eggs.
It laid
and you
eggs.
Go, that one. And then the one, which I think was Pickman's model. Pickman's model was pretty scary. But the one where the guy leaves the brooch for the woman and it grows and bites her. I can't remember all the details of it, but it was scary. It was so scary.
I think I actually have it on DVD, but I got tired of watching it and never finished it. The series, that is. It was only like 2 seasons.
Yeah, it was good, though. It had some
Spielberg did the movie pilot with Joan Crawford.
Yeah. It had some good Lovecraft. It had some good stuff to it. I mean, there were some good episodes from what I remember as a kid.
So Night Gallery, Earwig, for sure. They definitely
keys that have come out of this, of course. One that got me just based on the other day when we were talking was the whole. Have you ever piloted a ship out of Stardock? You know, well, out of Space Dock. Well, Mr. Savick, take her out. Is Starship Troopers. When she's trying to take the ship out and scaring everybody in the command on the command deck. And they make fun of it in Galaxy Quest. You know, Galaxy Quest is an homage to this particular movie. Well, the series as well, but definitely this particular movie has a lot of Galaxy Quest takes a lot of inspiration from this movie.
And Trek in general too.
But down to the, you know, taking the ship out of dock and you scrape the whole side of the starship and everything. Let's see.
I have, and you've probably, if we haven't mentioned this, it's because we mentioned it on our sister podcast and I'm getting them confused. But the submarine movies, the whole Mutara Nebula sequence is homage or derived from old sea battle or submarine battle movies, including The Enemy Below and Run Silent, Run Deep, which is actually playing on Turner Classics right now. It also inspired the series episode Balance of Terror, which is another one of mine and David's favorites. If you listen to our sister podcast, you will find that out. So Star Trek, excuse me, I didn't mean to pause there. Star Trek lifted that suspense of not knowing where the enemy is kind of battle from those movies.
Yeah, what I liked about it was, and I wonder, you know, it'd be curious to see in the writing room how they work through it. But, you know, when your sensors can see the entire quadrant, meaning not just this solar system, but several around it, then nobody can sneak up on you. And so it's hard to kind of have a battle, a close quarters battle, if you can't have that. But by getting rid of the sensors, first of all, by having them damaged so you can't even see when the ship's on the other side of the planet, to then having the Mutara Nebula actually dampen the sensors, it makes a very close quarters battle, which worked and worked really well. You know, they do the same sort of thing in Undiscovered Country. A key would be the ending of that because the ship is cloaked. The Klingon ship is cloaked and they have to try to find out where it is.
Is it Undiscovered Country where the last line is the line from Peter Pan.
Yes, because that's the
past
last
the
one.
star and on till morning or whatever.
Second star to the left, straight on to morning.
Straight on to morning. Okay, because I swear to you, I was watching this the other day, and I was like, "Oh, they're going to say that line, and I'm going to cry again." But then I was like, "Oh, I guess that's a different movie."
Yeah. No, that's in
waiting
5.
for them to say it in this.
And this year we just lost Christopher Plummer, who played Kang in that one, who played the cry havoc and let
right.
cry,
And the
let
reason
slip
that
the
line
dogs
makes
off the wall.
the reason that line in the 6th movie makes me sad is because I knew it was the last movie.
Yeah.
And that's why that line brings tears to me too, because I like that movie a lot.
Yeah. I may have said 5, but 6 is Undiscovered Country. 5 is Search for God.
They call it, what is it called though?
What?
The 5th movie.
The 5th is Wrath of God? No. What?
The Undiscovered Country is the final one. The 5th movie is the one Shatner decided to direct, where they ripped that Hall and Ellison story off, and it was terrible.
Yep. Oh yeah.
But I can't remember the name of it.
You've repressed it.
I have.
What was Star Trek 4?
That's The Voyage Home.
Voyage Home, very good. Final Frontier was 5.
That's it. The Final Frontier is the one that's so bad. Yeah.
Search for Spock was 3.
Mm-hmm. And I don't mind it. That's got Christopher Lloyd.
It's an okay continuation. I like Christopher Lloyd in it. I like some of the stuff they do with it. Undiscovered Country is just so much better. It's again back to the politicalization. The Star Trek can be a better place for the world and the universe. Yada yada stuff. Yeah.
And they're out gallivanting on their last little run.
Yep, it's their last run.
Back to Keys. You would know this more than I, but Nicholas Meyer apparently admits that Khan's familiarity with Chekhov is a mistake, but defends it, citing Arthur Conan Doyle, and that he frequently had trivial errors in his Sherlock Holmes stories and made no apologies for them. I thought that was funny because when I'm writing a book, I can't tell you how much time I spend trying to find things to make sure that I don't do that. You know what I mean? Because I'm always afraid did I say that earlier? Or if I didn't, I need to, that kind of thing.
Well, I've got a key within the franchise, which is they do it in motion picture as well, but they do it in this. But when they go on a landing party, they wear jackets, just like in the original Cage pilot. Mm-hmm. They put on a jacket when they go to, in this one, it looks like these big wintry coats. But
at one time he has like his collar up too.
Yeah. And so while we're there, these uniforms, love them. I think this is the way you do good uniforms, as opposed to the jammies in the first one. And then as opposed to Next Generation, which got into, men wearing skirts and all kinds of just weird, tight unitards and all that stuff.
So
These
what
have
was
great
your key?
uniforms.
The original series? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the key went back to the Cage. Because in the Cage, they wear jackets when they go on the landing party.
What else do I have?
Captain Blood, the old sailing ships, all of that.
This one I did not think about. I had to cut and paste this one. This one kind of surprised me. But the similarities between this and Empire Strikes Back. Are you aware of this?
What? Where?
Well, the opening blurb in this one is in the 23rd century, and instead of in a galaxy far, far away.
Yeah.
Or a long time ago. Both films are essentially extended spacecraft chases involving a villain seeking vengeance against heroes. Han and Leia are forced to travel together, leading their romantic relationship to blossom. Kirk and his former lover, Carol, are thrown back together because of events in this film. Both films also feature a paternal revelation, Vader being Luke's father, Kirk's being David's. And then they also end with the loss of a beloved character, the freezing of Han Solo versus the death of Spock. I was like, wow, there are some similarities there.
I had not. Why have I never seen those? But okay, that's
so.
interesting.
The Empire Strikes Back is my key. There you go.
There you go.
And they both came out relatively the same time. Didn't they? No. Empire Strikes Back came out in like 80. Return of the Jedi was like 82. Yeah. So there you go. That's really all the keys I have. I mean, other than, your basic starship battle movies and Star Trek in general, which is it's a massive mechanism of locks and keys.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of homages to different things in this. There's a lot of stuff you can read into it if you have watched other stuff.
You mentioned Shakespeare. I mean, there's Shakespearean elements all over this film.
Oh, yeah. From aging to losing, losing your best friend, all of that. Yeah. And there's also, literary allusions all through this, like you said, Moby Dick, but there's also Paradise Lost. There's, what does he give? Spock gives Kirk A Tale of Two Cities.
I actually had clipped that for my notes too, and I don't see it, but it's the books on Khan's shelf.
Paradise Lost, the Bible, Moby Dick is actually on his shelf.
Which
there
would
it
make
is.
Sense. I just missed it. And King Lear is in there too.
Yeah, Kirk, Khan would read the great stories because he would consider them superior. Which was his big deal in the original series was, a superior woman.
Moby Dick and Paradise Lost deal with the vengeance theme and being harmed by a higher power. And King Lear is the story of a man living with bad decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, that's both of those encapsulate this movie pretty much.
Yeah.
So, I would definitely say they were there for a reason.
This movie also has you mentioned it a little bit, but, the whole Ricardo Montalban chest. I remember that whole fan theory of that's prosthetic and makeup and da-da-da. But no, that's him.
It's him.
He was like 60 when he did this or something, wasn't he?
He was pretty old. He was popular on television at the time for playing the benevolent Mr. Rourke on Fantasy Island. And he didn't look muscular in that at all. But the reason it looks like a chest plate is because of that necklace. If he didn't have that necklace on, you would know it wasn't a chest plate.
Well, there's that. Yeah.
Drag performers wear fake breast and they hide that plate with a necklace, like a big necklace. And it does look kind of fake at times because it is kind of massive.
I'm just trying to see any of my last notes. There's a great trick shot in this movie, other than the fact that it was so great to see actual miniatures again. I say it every time we watch an old science fiction movie, but I like miniatures, not CGI spaceships. This looked so good, the way they were shot and the way they were used and everything.
I think it's because you can light them better.
But the scene where it's near the beginning, Kirk has left the simulation room and he runs into Spock, and then he and Spock get out of the elevator and they walk, and they're like in an atrium when he's talking to him about Tale of Two Cities and Surely the Best of Times and all that. And, there's all those plants and everything else growing around them. And it's a really pretty nice interior shot. Most of that shot is a miniature that's forced perspective and put in front of the camera. So most of the plants on the ground and everything else are actually in the foreground framing the shot and in a miniature. And it's an actual old Ray Harryhausen trick. So that was one of the keys that I had.
That's cool. Now that you mention it, I was going to give props to Kirk's house. I like his house, man. It's hot.
Oh, I do too. His apartment.
Yeah.
It overlooks San Francisco Bay. It's got a curved wall for the fireplace and a curved fireplace.
Got weapons
cool.
on the wall. It's just, and books, and it's just cool.
There's Romulan ale.
Well, that's because of McCoy, but yeah.
Yep.
For medicinal purposes.
I mean, we could talk for hours just reminiscing about this movie because it is so personal, I think, to both of us, but it's also such a well done movie. It's great fandom. It's a great franchise. It's a great way to show how to take a television series and, quote, reboot it in a motion picture format, which everybody seems to want to do now with everything. Can't wait for the Walking Dead movies.
For content. There's so many platforms now. They need content.
Well, you know, there's lots of really well-written books out there that people could take and adapt into a film or a television series.
I don't know what you're talking about. I couldn't even imagine.
The Dead Next Door, I think, would make a great 10-part miniseries on Netflix or Amazon Prime.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah, it's really good. So everybody should read it.
Hey, Rob Zombie's going to do the Munsters.
Oh, yeah, I've read that. What? Who thought that was a good idea? Rip his head off. Yeah. That's not going to work, but thanks for that. That was just, so I guess we should thank everybody for listening to us.
Yes,
and watching
we have to wrap this. I would think we've run a little late.
We need to let you guys go back to your lives.
Hey, look, if you enjoyed this, though, join us over on Patreon, because we talk about what 30. How many are in the first season? How many episodes? 29.
24. 24. Might have been 26.
More like 29. Anyway, we have 29 episodes of Star Trek over on Patreon, and
already,
soon to be more.
Soon to be more, plus other favorites and other neat things and cool stuff that we do just for our Patreon guests. So consider doing that. If you're watching us on YouTube, subscribe. It's one click to you, but it's a lot to us.
Ring that bell.
Do that, please. And tell all your friends to come and listen to us. If you are new joining us, you can look back at the website and pick a movie from the past 3 years that we've covered and see if there's one you like or something else you like. Hopefully there is. If you are returning, then tell more friends about us. We want to see you guys come and comment. Let us know what you think. Did you like Wrath of Khan? Was it worth it? You know.
And those of you that are on our Patreon list, we have finalized the season 4, and I do have a list typed out. And I will send that out sometime soon. And I will send the copy of this season with it, because I did not send it last year because of COVID, when no one was going anywhere at the time. So
right now it's under lock and key and being held in a secure location. So,
40 films, and you can know in advance what they are if you subscribe on Patreon.
If you subscribe on Patreon. So there we go. We've hit Patreon a lot today. Till next time, Tim, thanks so much.
Hey, it's been a pleasure.
All right, buddy.
Bye.
Bye. Live long. Prosper.
You can't start the car. Johnny has the keys.